The restaurant was full that evening. Soft music was playing, plates were clinking, and rich people were laughing loudly. It was the kind of place where money spoke louder than kindness. Maya moved quietly between tables. She wore a simple black uniform, her hair tied neatly, her face calm. Most customers never looked at her twice. To them, she was just another waitress. But tonight was different. At the corner table sat a millionaire named Richard Cole. Everyone in the city knew him. Expensive suit, loud voice, the kind of man who enjoyed attention. And tonight, he wanted entertainment. When Maya came to take his order, he leaned back in his chair and smiled in a way that made the nearby tables go silent. "So," he said loudly, making sure others could hear, "I'll give you $100,000 if you serve me in Chinese." Some people laughed. Others looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Maya stayed still for a moment. Her hands did not shake. Her face did not change. Richard smirked. He expected her to be embarrassed. Maybe angry. Maybe silent. He expected power. What he did not expect was confidence. Maya smiled politely. Then she spoke. Fluent Mandarin flowed from her mouth, clear and natural. Not broken. Not slow. Perfect. The laughter stopped immediately. Richard's smile faded. People turned their heads. Phones slowly came out. The entire restaurant suddenly felt quiet. Maya finished taking the order in Chinese, then repeated it in English, calm and professional. "Will that be all, sir?" Richard blinked. For the first time, he looked unsure, but he wasn't ready to lose. "Oh," he laughed nervously, "beginner's luck. Try Spanish." Without hesitation, Maya switched languages again. Smooth, natural, effortless. A couple at the next table whispered to each other. Did she just? Yes. Richard's face tightened. Now people were watching him, not laughing with him. He leaned forward. "French," he said. Maya answered in French. "German." She replied again. By now, the restaurant had gone completely silent. 9 languages later, Richard was no longer smiling. The same people who laughed before were now staring at Maya with respect and at Richard with discomfort. But Maya did not look proud. She did not try to embarrass him. She simply did her job, because this was not the first time someone underestimated her, and it would not be the last. As she walked away, one of the younger waiters whispered, "Why didn't you tell anyone you could do that?" Maya paused. Her eyes softened for just a second. "Because people don't listen until they think you're small," she said quietly. What nobody in that restaurant knew was that Maya was not working there because she had no choice. She was working there because she was waiting for something, or someone. Back at the table, Richard watched her walk away. Something about the moment bothered him. He tried to make her small, but somehow he felt smaller instead. And for the first time in years, he felt embarrassed. But pride is a dangerous thing. Instead of apologizing, Richard called the manager. And what he said next would change Maya's life completely. Because this was never just about languages. It was about respect. And before the night ended, the entire restaurant would learn who Maya really was. The restaurant was no longer loud. People were still eating, but the energy had changed. Conversations were quieter now. Eyes followed Maya as she moved between tables. Some customers smiled at her with new respect. Others whispered, still surprised by what they had just seen. But at Richard Cole's table, the mood was different. He didn't like being the center of attention for the wrong reason. When a manager arrived, Richard leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. His voice was calm, but there was anger hiding underneath. "I don't appreciate being embarrassed in my own city," he said. The manager looked confused. "Sir, that waitress," Richard continued, pointing slightly toward Maya. She was being sarcastic, showing off. "I come here for service, not a performance." The manager hesitated. He had seen everything. So had half the restaurant. Maya had done nothing wrong. Still, Richard was a powerful customer. And powerful customers often expected special treatment. Across the room, Maya noticed the manager looking at her. She already understood what was happening. This was not new to her. She walked over calmly. "Yes, sir." Richard studied her face, searching for nervousness. Fear. Anything that would give him control again. He found none. "You think you're smarter than everyone else?" he asked quietly. Maya shook her head. "No, sir. I only answered your request." Some customers nearby stopped eating, pretending not to listen. Richard leaned forward. Then why are you working here? Someone who speaks 9 languages shouldn't be serving tables. It sounded like a question, but it was really a challenge. For a moment, Maya said nothing, because the truth was complicated, and the truth hurt. I work where I choose to work, she replied softly. The answer only frustrated him more. Before he could respond, an older woman at the next table spoke up. She was respectful. The woman said firmly, "You asked." She answered. A few people nodded. Richard's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being corrected in public. The manager quickly stepped in, trying to calm the situation. "Sir, perhaps we can offer dessert on the house." But Richard raised his hand. "No, I want to know something." He looked directly at Maya again. "Where did you learn all that?" The question sounded simple, but something in his tone had changed. Less mocking now, more curious. Maya hesitated. Memories flashed through her mind. Small apartments, long nights, books borrowed instead of bought, people who doubted her, doors that never opened. And one moment she never forgot. A teacher once telling her, "You will have to work twice as hard just to be seen." She smiled politely again. "From listening," she said, "and from needing to survive." The answer confused him. Before Richard could ask more, another waiter rushed toward the manager, whispering urgently in his ear. The manager's expression suddenly changed. Surprise, then worry. He looked at Maya. "Maya, someone is here asking for you." She frowned slightly. She wasn't expecting anyone. "Who?" The manager lowered his voice. "He says he flew in from another country. Says it's important." The restaurant grew quieter again as people sensed something unusual happening. Richard watched closely. Something about this moment felt bigger than a simple restaurant argument. Maya wiped her hands slowly on her apron, her calm expression slipping for the first time that night. Because deep down she already knew who it might be. Someone from a past she had tried to leave behind. Someone who knew the truth about why she worked here. As she walked toward the entrance, the glass doors opened. A tall man in a formal suit stepped inside, looking around urgently until his eyes landed on her. Relief filled his face. "There you are," he said. And the way he said it made Maya's heart drop. Because this man didn't see her as a waitress. He addressed her like someone important. Very important. And suddenly, everyone in the restaurant realized. They didn't know Maya at all. The restaurant doors closed slowly behind the man. For a moment, nobody moved. The sound of plates and soft music faded into the background as I turned toward the entrance. The man stood tall, dressed in an expensive dark suit, his posture confident but respectful. He was clearly not there to eat. He was there for Maya. Maya stopped a few steps away from him. Her calm expression returned, but her eyes showed something different now. Worry. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. The man gave a small, apologetic smile. "I didn't have a choice. We've been trying to reach you for weeks." People nearby exchanged curious looks. The manager stood frozen, unsure whether to interrupt or step away. At the corner table, Richard leaned forward, listening carefully. This was no longer entertainment. This was something else. "What do you want, Daniel?" Maya asked. So they knew each other. Daniel lowered his voice, but in the silence of the restaurant, several people could still hear him. "They need you back," he said. "Things are getting worse." Maya shook her head immediately. "No, I told you, I'm done with that life." Daniel sighed. "You may be done, but they're not done with you." The words hung in the air. Richard frowned. He had expected excuses or drama, not mystery. Who was this waitress really? Daniel glanced around the restaurant, noticing the curious faces. He spoke more carefully now. "You built something important, Maya. People depend on you." Maya's jaw tightened. "I built it so people like me wouldn't have to fight just to be respected. And look where I am now." There was no anger in her voice, only exhaustion. The manager stepped closer. "Maya, is everything okay?" She nodded gently. "Yes, I just need a minute." But the truth was, nothing felt okay. Memories returned again. Conference rooms, translations during tense negotiations, long nights helping people who could not speak for themselves. She had once worked in places where every word mattered, where a single misunderstanding could destroy opportunities. She had been good at it. Too good. And that was the problem. Daniel spoke again, softer this time. They're asking for you personally. The meeting failed without you. No one else could fix it. A young customer whispered to her friend. Meeting? Fix what? Richard's curiosity turned into discomfort. He suddenly remembered how he had spoken to her earlier. The joke didn't feel funny anymore. Maya looked down at her hands. Hands that had carried plates all night. Hands that once signed international agreements as a translator and advisor. I chose this place because it was quiet, she said. Because nobody expected anything from me. Daniel nodded slowly. And now everyone does again. Across the room, phones were no longer recording. People were simply watching, realizing they had judged her too quickly. Richard shifted in his seat. For the first time, he felt something close to guilt. He had tried to reduce her to a joke. But clearly, she had lived a life far bigger than this restaurant. So why here? Daniel asked gently. Why hide? Maya looked around the room, at the customers, the staff, the ordinary evening that suddenly felt fragile. Because here, she said, people show you who they really are. Her eyes briefly met Richard's. He looked away first. Daniel followed her gaze, understanding more than she said aloud. The world outside hasn't changed, he said quietly. They still underestimate you. Maya gave a small, tired smile. I know. A long silence passed. Finally, Daniel reached into his coat and handed her a sealed envelope. This is the last request, he said. After tonight, they won't ask again. Maya stared at the envelope without opening it. Her heart beat faster. She already knew accepting it would change everything again. Behind her, the manager whispered, Maya, you don't have to go if you don't want to. But deep down, she knew the truth. Some responsibilities don't disappear just because you walk away. As she slowly opened the envelope, her expression changed. Shocked, then concern, because whatever was written inside was serious. And this time, walking away might not be an option. The restaurant remained silent as Maya looked up again. The quiet waitress everyone underestimated was suddenly standing at the center of something much bigger. And Richard realized something that made his stomach sink. The woman he mocked might be the most important person in the room. Maya stared at the paper inside the envelope. The words were short, formal, urgent, but the meaning behind them was heavy. Her fingers tightened slightly as she read the last line again. The room around her felt distant, like the sound had been turned down. She could feel people watching, waiting, trying to understand what was happening. Daniel spoke softly. They wouldn't have sent me if it wasn't serious. Maya exhaled slowly. For months, she had lived a quiet life. No pressure, no expectations. Just simple work, simple conversations, and nights where she could finally sleep without worrying about consequences. Now, that peace was slipping away. What happened? She asked. Daniel lowered his voice. 2 companies, 2 countries, 1 agreement. Everything collapsed this morning. The translators couldn't keep up. 1 wrong phrase turned into an insult. Now both sides are refusing to speak. Maya closed her eyes briefly. She understood immediately. Language was never just about words. It was about tone, culture, respect. 1 mistake could destroy years of trust. And they think I can fix it, she said quietly. They know you can, Daniel replied. Across the restaurant, Richard listened carefully. His earlier confidence was gone. The more he heard, the worse he felt. He remembered laughing, testing her, trying to make her look small. Now he realized how wrong he had been. Maya folded the paper and slipped it back into the envelope. I left for a reason, she said. You remember that? Daniel nodded. Because you were tired of fighting alone. Her silence confirmed it. Years ago, Maya had become known for solving impossible communication problems. Governments, corporations, organizations, they called her when meetings failed. She didn't just translate languages. She translated people. But success came with pressure. Endless travel. Endless expectations. And sometimes, people took credit for her work while she stood quietly in the background. Eventually, she walked away. No announcements. No explanations. She simply disappeared. Until tonight. The manager stepped closer again, concern on his face. Maya, if this is important, you should go. She looked at him, surprised. What about work? He smiled gently. You've done enough for this place. For the first time that evening, Maya looked unsure. Because leaving meant returning to a world that never slowed down. But staying meant knowing she could help and choosing not to. At the corner table, Richard suddenly stood up. The movement caught everyone's attention. He walked slowly toward Maya, his expression serious now, pride replaced by something heavier. Regret. I owe you an apology, he said quietly. The restaurant fell silent again. Maya looked at him, calm but cautious. The small action felt bigger than anyone expected. The manager nodded with quiet pride. Richard stepped aside, giving her space to walk past. This time, he didn't see a waitress. He saw someone carrying responsibility. As Maya reached the door, she stopped for a moment. Not because she was afraid, but because she knew once she stepped outside, everything would change again. She turned slightly toward Daniel. If I do this, she said, it's the last time. Daniel gave a small smile. That's what you said last time, too. Maya almost laughed. Then she pushed the door open. Cold night air rushed inside. And as she stepped out, no one in the restaurant realized that the quiet woman they watched all evening was about to walk into a situation that could affect thousands of people. Because this time, the problem wasn't just about language. It was about pride, power, and a mistake that could cost millions. And Maya was the only person who could stop it. The car ride to the airport was silent. City lights passed quickly outside the window, reflecting across Maya's face. She stared ahead, her thoughts heavy. Just hours ago, she had been carrying plates and smiling politely at strangers. Now, she was returning to a world where every word mattered. Daniel finally spoke. They're already waiting. Maya nodded. She expected that. Important people never liked waiting, especially when money and reputation were at risk. The private jet was ready when they arrived. No dilas. No questions. Everything moved fast, like the decision had already been made for her. As the plane lifted into the night sky, Maya closed her eyes for a moment. She remembered why she left this life. Long meetings. Powerful people arguing without listening. Everyone wanting to win, no one wanting to understand. And somehow, she was always placed in the middle. By morning, they arrived at a tall glass building surrounded by security. Inside, the atmosphere felt tense. Assistants walked quickly. Voices were low. No one smiled. Daniel leaned closer. Both sides refused to speak directly now. One insult led to another. Lawyers are already involved. Maya sighed softly. So it's not about language anymore. No, Daniel admitted. Now it's about ego. The conference room doors opened. Two groups sat on opposite sides of a long table. Expensive suits. Cold expressions. People who were used to being in control. The moment Maya entered, several heads turned. Some recognized her immediately. Whispers spread across the room. She came back. Is that really her? Maya ignored it and took her seat quietly between both sides. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, one executive leaned forward. We were told you could fix this. Maya looked at him calmly. I can help, but only if everyone here wants a solution. The room remained silent. Finally, one man scoffed. They insulted our company first. The other side responded instantly. Because your translator changed the meaning of our proposal. Voices began rising again. The same argument. The same anger. Maya raised her hand gently. And surprisingly, the room went quiet. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't show authority. She simply spoke clearly. You are not arguing about words, she said. You are arguing about respect. The sentence stopped everyone. She continued, switching languages effortlessly as she addressed both sides directly, making sure every tone, every intention was understood exactly as meant. Slowly, the tension shifted. She explained where the misunderstanding started, a phrase that sounded polite in one culture but arrogant in another. A sentence that, when translated directly, lost its original meaning. Faces around the table began to change. Confusion turned into realization. One executive leaned back, rubbing his forehead. So this whole thing was a misunderstanding. Maya nodded, a small one, made bigger by pride. Hours passed. She translated not just words but emotions. She softened harsh statements without changing their meaning. She reminded both sides of what they originally wanted, partnership, not victory. And little by little, the room changed. Voices lowered. People listened. By evening, the agreement was back on the table. Not perfect, but alive again. As the final documents were signed, relief spread through the room. Millions of dollars saved. Months of work restored. One executive stood and shook Maya's hand. "We couldn't have done this without you." She smiled politely, but inside, she felt tired. Because she knew this feeling well. Fix the problem. Save the day. Then disappear again. Later, standing alone near the window, Daniel joined her. "You did it again," he said. Maya looked out at the city below. "No," she replied softly. "They did. They just needed to listen." Her phone buzzed. A message from the restaurant manager. "Your job is still here if you ever want peace again." Maya smiled faintly. For the first time since leaving, she realized something important. Maybe she didn't have to choose between worlds anymore. Maybe her strength was not in hiding, but in deciding where she belonged. Behind her, people celebrated the successful deal. But Maya remained quiet, because deep down, she knew this wasn't the end of the story. Someone had been watching the meeting closely. Someone impressed, not by her languages, but by her influence. And soon a new opportunity or a new challenge would arrive. One that could change her life forever. The meeting was over, but the building was still alive with energy. Executives shook hands. Assistants rushed through hallways with relieved smiles. The crisis that had almost destroyed months of work was now being called a success story. And at the center of it all was Maya. Yet she stood quietly near the window, watching the city lights below. She didn't feel victorious. She felt tired. This world always moved fast. Too fast. Daniel approached her again. "They want to invite you to dinner. Celebration." Maya shook her head gently. "I think I've had enough attention for one day." Before Daniel could reply, a woman in a dark blue suit walked toward them. Her presence was calm, but powerful. People moved aside as she passed, showing respect without being asked. "Maya Thompson," the woman said. Maya turned. "Yes." The woman smiled slightly. "My name is Elena Cruz. I represent the International Advisory Board overseeing this agreement." Maya nodded politely. She had heard of them before. They handled conflicts much larger than business deals. International negotiations, humanitarian partnerships, situations where communication failures could lead to serious consequences. "I watched the entire meeting," Elena continued. "You didn't just translate. You changed the atmosphere of the room." Maya gave a small smile. "I only help people understand each other." Elena studied her carefully. "That's exactly why I'm here." Daniel's expression changed slightly. He already understood where this was going. "We need someone like you," Elena said. "Someone who can walk into tension and turn it into conversation. Someone people underestimate until it's too late." Maya felt a familiar pressure returning. "I'm not looking to come back full-time," she replied calmly. "I left that life for a reason." Elena nodded, as if expecting the answer. "I know. I read your file." That made Maya pause. "Then you know why I walked away?" "Yes," Elena said softly. "You were doing the work, but others were taking the credit. You carried responsibility without recognition." Maya didn't respond. "Because it was true," Elena continued. "This would be different. You choose when you step in. You choose which situations matter. No politics. No spotlight unless you want it." The offer hung in the air. For years, Maya had wanted exactly that, the ability to help without losing herself in the process. But promises were easy to make. Daniel spoke carefully. "This could give you balance." Maya looked at him. "Or pull me back into the same cycle." Before anyone could say more, Maya's phone vibrated again. Another message from the restaurant. A photo this time. Her co-workers smiling, holding up a small handwritten sign. "Good luck, Maya. Come back safe." Her chest tightened slightly. That place had been simple, honest, real. No power games. No hidden expectations. Elena noticed the change in her expression. "You don't have to answer now," she said. "But people like you are rare. And the world needs people who build bridges instead of walls." After Elena walked away, silence settled between Maya and Daniel. "You're thinking about it," he said. Maya sighed. "I'm thinking about whether helping people always has to cost something." They left the building together later that night. The air outside was cool, quieter than the chaos inside. For the first time in years, Maya felt like she was standing between two lives. One where she was invisible and peaceful, another where she was needed but never truly at rest. As they reached the car, Daniel stopped. "There's something else," he said carefully. Maya frowned. "What?" He hesitated. "Someone requested access to the meeting recording. Not for business reasons." "Who?" Daniel's expression grew serious. "A private foundation. Very powerful. They're interested in you personally." Maya felt a small chill. Not all attention was good attention, and she had learned long ago that influence attracted both opportunity and danger. She looked back at the tall building one last time. Only hours ago, she thought this would be her final job. Now it felt like the beginning of something much bigger. Because somewhere, someone had decided Maya was valuable. And people with power rarely watched without a reason. As the car drove away into the night, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change again. Not because of languages this time, but because of the choices she would soon be forced to make. The next morning felt unusually quiet. Maya woke up in the hotel room, sunlight slipping through the curtains. For the first time in days, there were no urgent calls, no raised voices, no people waiting for her to fix something. Just silence. But her mind refused to rest. Elena's offer. The private foundation watching her. The restaurant back home. Two completely different lives, pulling her in opposite directions. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel. "They want to meet you." Just a conversation. Maya stared at the screen for a long moment. She had learned something over the years. Powerful people rarely asked for just a conversation. Still, curiosity won. An hour later, she entered a smaller conference room in the same building. This time, there were no crowds. No executivos arguing. Only 3 people waiting at the table. Older, calm, observant. They stood as she entered. "Ms. Thompson," one of them said warmly. "Thank you for coming." Maya nodded politely, but remained cautious. "You wanted to speak with me?" The woman in the center smiled. "We watched how you handled yesterday's negotiation. You didn't force control. You created trust." Maya sat down slowly. "That was my job." The man beside her shook his head. "No, most people translate words. You translate intention." The sentence made her pause. Because that was exactly how she had always seen her work, but few people understood it. The woman continued. "Our foundation works in conflict zones. Places where conversations fail before they even begin. We don't need someone famous. We need someone people underestimate." Maya felt the weight of their words. She remembered the restaurant, the laughter, the moment Richard thought she was just a waitress. Underestimation had always followed her. Sometimes it hurt. Sometimes it protected her. "And why me?" Maya asked quietly. The man answered honestly. "Because you listen before you speak. And people trust those who listen." Silence filled the room. For years, Maya had run away from responsibility, believing peace meant stepping back. But now she understood something different. Peace wasn't always found by leaving. Sometimes it was created by staying. The woman slid a folder across the table. "No contracts today. Just information. Think about it." Maya didn't open it immediately. Instead, she asked the question that mattered most. "If I say no," the woman smiled gently, "then you go back to your life. And we respect that. No pressure. No demands." For the first time, the choice truly felt like hers. Later that evening, Maya stood outside the airport, watching planes rise into the sky, each one carrying people toward different futures. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Richard. "I wanted to say thank you. You taught me something that night. I started language classes today." Maya smiled softly. People could change. Sometimes all it took was one moment of truth. Another message followed from the restaurant manager. "Your apron is still hanging where you left it." She laughed quietly. 2 worlds. Both real. Both part of her story. Daniel walked up beside her. "So what happens now?" Maya looked at the sky for a long moment before answering. "I think," she said slowly, "I stop hiding. Not chasing power. Not running from it either. Just choosing where her voice mattered most. Because she finally understood something important. Her strength was never the 9 languages she spoke. It was the way she made people feel heard. As boarding was announced, Maya picked up her bag and walked forward. Not toward the past, and not fully toward the future either, but toward a life she would define on her own terms. And somewhere in another city, another room, another misunderstanding was already waiting. This time, Maya wouldn't be hiding from it. She would be ready.